Today's customer requested a turning red cake for a birthday party, and I ordered these figurines on Amazon. They ended up being the perfect size. So I started off with the red base, and the customer did want 2-tier cake to feed about 30 people. So I did 2 layers of 8-inch on the bottom, and then I did 2 layers of 6-inch on the top. And with that same red, I went in with the bottom border and the top border. So the trick that I use when putting figurines that are really hard to stand up and are most likely going to fall, especially on the drive, I glue the bottom of that figure to some sticks, some dowels, anything that'll support it, and then I stick that into the cake. I always have the customer really grateful that they did not fall and they're very secure and sturdy. I went ahead and glued the bottom ones, and this piece of paper was so much fun to make. I got a white piece of fondant, and with some blue food coloring and mixed with some water, I got a ruler and I drew those lines, and then I just wrote in some really cute lyrics and some cute little notes that a teenage girl would write. I added that 4Town logo and some stars, and there. A close friend of mine reached out today with a huge favor. Her brother who's in the army called her and said he would be coming home today to surprise their whole family, and that his plane would be landing in 2 hours. So she texted me and asked if I could do the impossible and make him a custom welcome home cake. She told me that it was fine if it was a store-bought cake, she just really wanted me to decorate it so that it could be a custom cake for him. I've never decorated a store-bought cake before, so I agreed because of course I wanted to give this a try. First, she sent me some pictures of him and some things that he likes, like his favorite sports team and his favorite NASCAR driver. I made a quick collage on my phone using Pic Collage, and then I printed that on an edible printer. Then I stopped at the store and bought the first cake that I found. It was between this one and a very dark colored red, so I figured it would be much easier to work with the white and the pink. This is that edible sugar sheet, and I cut everything out while that cake is crumb coated in the freezer. I made a batch of buttercream, and then I go ahead and I frost the whole thing in white buttercream. So my friend did send me a picture of the little setup she had made really quick, and it was red, white, and blue balloons as well as a cute table cover. So I thought I would just match the quick decoration that she had made with the red, white, and blue. So I frost the cake white, and then I just go back in there and make sure that I make it as smooth as possible, because even though this cake is rushed, we don't want it to look rushed. And it was about this point where I started to freak out a little bit, because she was texting me that she was on her way to the airport to go pick up her brother. But if you've ever been to Phoenix Sky Harbor, you know that it takes a while to get in there and to get out. It's nothing quick. So I start placing all of the images on the cake. I used the largest image that I had and placed it right on top, and then all of the other smaller images I just placed in the front. With that leftover buttercream that I had, I colored half of it red and half of it blue to match that decoration that she had set up already. And then I did that bottom border in royal blue, and then I did the top in red. And I did have a little bit of buttercream left over, white, so I piped that border around that top image, and it came out super cute. I asked her for an update, and she had just picked him up, so she only lives 10 minutes away from me, so I knew I would beat her there. I put it in the freezer while I grabbed my shoes, grabbed my keys, and let it chill for a minute, and then I headed over there and I made it just in time right before she got there. And this is the final result, and then I did a quick side-by-side of before and after.
It's another day in the life of a badass baker. It's Wednesday and we're gonna crumb coat and chill. Well, the cakes are gonna chill, we are gonna work. If you saw my last video, you know I baked about 22 or 23 cakes, and we are going to be making 10 tiers today. And if you're wondering if 10 tiers is a lot for a home-based baker, it is. I definitely overbooked myself this weekend, and it's going to be very interesting come Friday when it's time to stack my orders. I don't know how it's all going to fit in my fridge, to be honest. But hey, I'm not complaining. We are going to bank this week, and that's good because my daughter's birthday is next weekend, and if anyone knows my daughter, you know how spoiled she is, so her birthday is very expensive. And while we're on the subject of her birthday, I did ask her what she wanted, and she said she wanted all of her TikTok friends to say hi Addie. So if you made it this far to the video, comment below, hi Addie. Whew, did you see those killer moves? I'm not just a baker, y'all. Anyways, I didn't get to finish, but this is what my fridge looked like at the end of the night. I'm gonna go have a Mike's Hard Lemonade. Bye, y'all.
Hey, you guys, I wanted to show you how big of a difference using a crumb coat on your cake makes in the final outcome when you're decorating. So to begin every cake decorating process that I do, I freeze my cake layers after I'm done baking them. So I put them in the freezer for about 4 to 5 hours until they get really cold and solid. Once the cakes are done freezing, I will then make some fresh frosting for this cake. This is a sprinkle birthday cake, and I'm using my vanilla buttercream frosting. And if you're wanting to get either the cake recipe or the frosting recipe, you can find the frosting all over my page. You can also watch my upcoming live because we are making my updated vanilla cake recipe, which I'm very excited about. To start this cake decorating process, I will get my cake board as well as my cakes and my frosting put in a pastry bag for easy access and decorating. And then I will put a little bit of frosting in the center of my cake board, and that is going to act as a glue to hold down that cake and help it not wiggle around. After I have glued down my cake layer, I will then go ahead and fill my cake layers with my frosting and apply that crumb coat, which is that first layer of frosting that holds that cake together, and it helps avoid getting any crumbs on that final layer of frosting. After I've applied that crumb coat, I will then go put it in the freezer for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then the magic happens. You apply one more layer of frosting, 2 if you really want to, but that one layer of frosting on top of that crumb coat makes a dramatic difference, and your cake will look amazing. And I really, really love the crumb coat for that reason, because it gives you that clean look and clean finish, and it allows you to have a very beautiful base cake to work with. After you're done applying that final layer of frosting, trim off that excess frosting off the top and decorate as wanted.
Oh, ella es mi Julieta y sin dudar. Con su comida cura todo mal. Sus guisos son remedios de verdad. Esperen para impresionarse más. Así es la familia Madrigal, hogar de mi gente Madrigal. ¡Hey, ahí voy! Les sonará tal vez fantástica y mágica, mas soy de la familia Madrigal. Los tipos que amaban a los Madrigal, pues son un par de famosos Madrigal. El tío Félix quiso a Pepa y mi pa quiso a Julieta, y así la abuela se hizo una abuela Madrigal. Así, así.
Hemos jurado abrir los brazos y juntos merecer el gran milagro. El pueblo vibra.
This is the cake that I made for my mom's birthday, and her party was fall themed, so I made a cake that matched. So I started with making the pumpkin that I carved out because I wanted this to look as realistic as possible. And then I covered it with chocolate ganache and then used an acetate sheet to smooth it out as much as I could. So now I'm covering the cake with modeling chocolate, and it's not the correct color, but that's okay because I'm going to paint it later. So after I add details to the pumpkin, I can now start on the bottom tier, which is supposed to resemble a basket. So I stacked it up with some of her favorite flavors and then covered that with chocolate ganache as well. And with fondant, I made a wood-like texture that I covered the bottom cake with and then painted it with brown food coloring to make it look a little more realistic. And now I'm adding the pumpkin to the top of the cake and then painting that as well because it wasn't the correct color before. Now I'm adding crushed Oreos to resemble soil and then adding the pumpkin stem and applying texture and color to that. So the rest of the details are made out of fondant, which are these metal bands that I painted silver, and then I created these sunflowers and these different color leaves that go around the basket. So that's the pumpkin basket biscuit cake complete, and my mom loved the cake, and I think it turned out pretty realistic.
This customer requested a Disney's Tangled themed cake. It is a 2-tier cake, so I went with light purple for the bottom, and for the top I went with light pink. I gave the customer different options for the topper, and this is the one that they went with. I found this one on Amazon, and I like it because it has the 2 different options for her hand. She either holds a frying pan or she holds a paintbrush. I personally love the frying pan, so I went with that one, but I did leave the other option in the bottom of the box in case they wanted to switch that out, they could. For this cake, I chose a ribbon border just because I will be adding a lot of flowers onto this cake, and it was a pretty small cake, so I didn't want it to be too much on there or too overpowering, so I went with a ribbon so it's a little bit more flat and it's not overwhelming, but it still gives it that clean look. Once the ribbon is on there, I put on her nameplate, which I made using white fondant, and I used an impression mat that I rolled over that. I cut out the oval and then I just put her name on there. And just to give it a cleaner look, I also go and I put a pink border around that with fondant. Now I began to add all of the flowers, so I did make roughly about 50 to 60 fondant flowers for this small cake, and I made those using a silicone mold. I want to say that I found them on Amazon, and you can find almost any silicone mold design that you're looking for, and they're very, very helpful when making a detailed cake because you can get every single little detail. For example, I have a mold for a baby, and it really gets every single detail in there. They have it for gold chains, or you can really do anything with these silicone molds, and they're extremely helpful. I made these flowers in 4 different colors. I did dark pink, light pink, and dark purple and light purple, and then I just went and I mixed and matched for the center of those flowers. And I just start placing them. I wanted them to look like they were cascading down. Once I like the general idea of how the flowers are falling, I go in with all of the extra ones that I have, and I just fill in all of the empty spaces. Now with this order, this customer also requested 2 dozen matching cupcakes, and this one was a delivery. However, it was about a 35-minute drive, so I had my husband deliver this one for me because I had about 10 cake orders this past weekend. Once I finish up with the flowers, I go ahead and I take my pictures in my light box, and then I get ready for delivery. So I make the box and then I stamp the box with my logo, and I like to put this in the freezer for about 5 to 10 minutes just to get it ready for delivery, make sure it's okay. And here's the finished product, and then here is everything all ready to go for delivery. And a couple days later, I did get tagged in this Instagram post by this graphic designer who I believe made the bags and the lanterns. I didn't get to go, but I'm so glad I saw this. This customer requested a Disney Cars cake, and I bought this toy on Amazon. The reason that I went with this larger toy rather than the smaller Hot Wheels size Lightning McQueen is because this was a large cake. It was 2 layers of 10-inch to feed 40 people, so it wouldn't have been too proportioned if I used that small, tiny Lightning McQueen on this really big cake. I was super happy when I found this toy on Amazon, not only because of the size, but because if you push down that top button, it does say some phrases, so the birthday boy can definitely play with it after the birthday party. I start out with a red buttercream base, and I always get asked how I get my colors so bright. It's Americolor food coloring. Next, I add a checkerboard bottom, but rather than cutting out a whole bunch of tiny little black and white squares that are all the same size, I do a thick border of white fondant, and then now I just have to cut out the black squares. After the bottom is done, I add a black circle that I cut out of fondant as the platform for Lightning McQueen, and then I stick him on there with some more of that edible glue so he doesn't roll off the cake. Next, I cut out some white strips of fondant and add that to that platform as well as the board to make it look like a roll. Next, I add the birthday boy's name on that Cars logo, and I did this by using Pic Collage and then just print it out and stick it on the cake. Last, I add some fondant stars behind Lightning McQueen as well as these fondant spirals that I made, and this is the final look. I hope you guys